Hi everyone, today's December 28th, 2019, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger. This week we are closing out the year. This is going to be the last podcast of 2019. What a year it's been, but in this episode, there isn't a ton going on in Duel World. We just have that one event, the Duelist Chronicles 5Ds, Fight for the Fortune Cup, a new card trader card, the Duel Column. So we're also going to talk about a bunch of other things. Doug Dimmaduel has a Brainless Mermail deck. It's kind of a deck that you play when you're drunk, I guess. That's what he means. But I guess if you're good enough at Yu-Gi-Oh! You could play any game drunk. But this doesn't require much thinking. It's a Mermail deck if you enjoy those water archetypes. We're talking about some Esports. A lot of tournaments that went on, like the MCS from Duel Links Meta, and also the smaller tournaments. We're going to talk about people online, where there's going to be a just chatting section where we include the podcast question of the week, some of the other things on Twitter, like the Horse of the End mini box, which wasn't actually a mini box. So let's get started. In terms of my week in the Duel World, I don't think I'm going to hit King of Games just because I've been playing with little sense of urgency. I was playing Fortune Lady, probably a few different versions of the deck. I was playing the Rewind version at some point, and then into some with flipping things face down, but then I didn't really get anywhere. So then I decided to end the year Unga Bunga style, and that is with my deck, the Element Saber Invoked Assault Mode deck. Not sure where this idea came from, but I copied a Japanese player's name into these decks, so I'm pretty sure I saw it on PvP. I thought it was really cool, but of course I am lacking cards. But what happened here with this deck is I never had Cosmic Enlightenment, which lets you draw a Psychic with 1,000 point life loss, so I was using Draw Sense Dark with Esperoba, of course, and Draw Sense Dark is 1,500, so there's a disadvantage there, notably with Cosmic Cyclone, and you have to lose some life to activate the Draw Sense Dark. And of course, I run 3 Dark Monsters. They're all cards you want to draw. They're Alistair, Malehu, and Psyreflector, but really the game changer is the Psyreflector when you're in a bind. Just because there's different synchro plays let you adapt. Malehu will just let you do some Element Saber plays, and then Alistair is your outlet if you wanted to invoke that turn. But yeah, this deck, I'll just talk about the deck. I still don't have Purgatrio. It sucks. I'm down to my last few. There's like 2 cards, 2 URs and SRs left in that box, and I still don't have Purgatrio. They're just taking all my coin. Like, Konami's just robbing me blind, and I have 0 Purgatrio, and I'm playing an Invoke deck. Like, what the heck, man, right? So, this is a 3-way threat deck, obviously, the Unga Bunga style. You've got the Invoked component, so there's 2 Alistair, that's all I have. 2 Invocation, and then I have 1 Magellanica. It's kind of stupid. I have the Semi-Limit on, and I only have 1 Magellanica, no Concentrating Current. Maybe I should put Concentrating Current in the deck, or Treacherous or something, or Hey Trunade. I could just, I'm just building the deck on the fly right here. And then I have 1 Coxodus. There's only 1 in that deck anyways. Then there's the Element Saber component. I have 2 Malehu, 3 Lapuya, who's actually a really good card. You put him on the board, 400 attack, so what, right? But then he prevents them from playing spells that turn. That's amazing. And I have 3 of the field spell, Palace of the Element, Lords. Now the Psyreflector component. I have 2 Psyreflector from the 2 boxes I bought, 1 Assault Beast, and 2 Assault Mode Activate. And then my synchro plays, I have Vermilion Dragon Mech as my level 9, Scrap Dragon as my level 8, Ancient Fairy Dragon for my level 7, and the MVP Brionic as my level 6. When you're playing these Psyreflector decks, it's useful to have, I have 1 of each level, and there's a reason for each one. Vermilion Dragon Mech just lets you recycle the Psi Reflector, so you destroy something on the board, and then when he gets destroyed, you get your Psi Reflector back, and then you could get into another synchro play, so that's pretty solid. Scrap Dragon, there's a reason for Scrap Dragon. You don't use your Assault Mode activates when you're done with them, and then this deck also runs 2 powerful Rebirth to get a Psi Reflector back or something. Really flexible card in this deck, but you could use it to pop stuff. Ancient Fairy Dragons for popping your own field or your opponent's fields. It's a big body on the board. And then Brionic is to end games, really. You just bounce their cards. You have enough useless cards in this deck that you want to toss. And then there's synergy with powerful Rebirth, so there's all that. Yeah, and then the deck also runs 2 Cosmic Cyclones to help you lose life. And 2 banish spells, of course. And that's the deck. And by playing this deck, I actually got Cosmic Enlightenment. So I did spend 200 chips, skill chips, to do it, to whittle it down, and eventually I did get Cosmic Enlightenment. So I'm using that to get into my Psi Reflector play. I'm Legend 4 right now. There's only a couple days left in the year, so I'm not really rushing to get King of Games. I don't care if I get King of Games, but that is my deck that I'm playing. Give it a spin yourself. Of course, I am looking for Purgatrio, so once I get that, there might be like a Lava Golem in my deck or something if the Element Sabers get too crazy. Purgatrio is also a great play right now because of Shiranui. Actually, that's not a good idea, because Shiranui like getting banished, so you don't want to banish their stuff. Never mind. So, let's get into esports this week. Duel Links Meta MCS 25 happened last week. It seemed years ago they had their first one, and now there's a 25th one. $2,000. So, a lot of people brought Element Sabers, but they weren't the most efficient, right? We have Shiranui also pretty much nudging them as the top tier, second tier deck. Dark Lords are probably the most efficient deck in terms of how many of them made it to the top 32, so they're still very, very viable. Black Wings are falling. That's kind of the trend of what happened here in this community. Ritual Beasts are pretty good efficiently. 2 Cristrons as well. They're kind of the sneaky decks. They're not sneaky in terms of you never see them. You see Ritual Beasts more than Cristrons, but they do make it into the top 32. First place, Jason Compensation Dark Lords. So this one has a slightly different look. Dark Lords typically are the same. Every Dark Lord deck, they pretty much have very little flexibility. Sometimes the monster composition is a little different. This one runs 2 Desire. You rarely see 2, you only see 1 typically. But notable differences about this deck is it runs a Sphere Karibo as well as Galaxy Cyclone. Generally good cards. You don't really mess around with those cards. They're just good cards. There's no special back row here. 3 Banishment of the Dark Lords, 2 Dark Lord Contact, 1 Sanctified Dark Lord, and then your mixture of monsters. They do run 2 Amdusk. Amdusk is pretty good for the compensation build from what I've seen. Second place, Myth Yard, Sealed Tombs Shiranui. This deck's a little interesting. It runs King's Consonants, and this is the Jack Atlas card where when they hit you, you negate the attack, so it's pretty much a negate attack there. And then you banish a tuner and non-tuners from your graveyard, and then you synchro summon a monster from your extra deck. The thing is, this has extra synergy with Shiranui, because then the Spectral Sword, can also make another one. So, this is, you banish them to make one on your opponent's turn, and then during your turn, you can banish them again and make another synchro play. So, there's a ton of synergy with King's Consonants here. I don't see why he's the first guy to put it in a deck, but also another card that you see a lot with Shiranui is Regulation of Tribe, and you just have to tribute a monster each turn, and these guys they recycle pretty well. They come back. Solitaire comes back a lot, I know. So, with Sealed Tombs locking down graveyards, and then you have Regulation of Tribe, they can't attack. The opponent's in a tough spot. This is definitely a top tier strategy here. And, yeah, very good. Third place, Blind Bandit, Sealed Tombs, Shiranui. This is pretty much the same deck without the radical choices. So same composition of monsters here. 2 Solitaire, 3 Squire, and 3 Spectral Sword. Yeah, with this, you can't really make the level 7, right? Yeah, so you're always bound to your even-numbered plays, your 6, 8, and 10. Of course, the meta likes flipping things face down right now, so there's 3 Floodgates and 3 Paleozoic Canadians. People are pretty much maxing out on those cards. Regulation of Tribe, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror to prevent any of those dark effects from happening, and Forbidden Lance is also another very popular card. Third place, -1, Sorcery Conduit, Element Saber, Invoked. Very general deck list for this archetype, which is 3 Alistair, 3 Malehu, 1 Maho, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 2 Invocation, 3 Field Spell, 1 Paleozoic, 2 Treacherous, and 2 Wall of D. With 3 Cosmic Cyclones, you don't have to play Lapuya. I played 3 Lapuya, I think, and 2 Cosmic. I don't have Purgatrio, so there's no point in me running Malo. I guess that's why my choice is like that, but we'll see. Anyways, that's the MCS. Let's go to Duel Links Meta Weekly 104, which follows the same trend. Shiranui is shaping out. They're well established now. They're kind of tied with Element Saber here in the top 32. Black Wings have fallen out of favor in this community. Ritual Beasts are still doing very well. First place, Black Jesus, Sealed Tombs, Shiranui. Again, the monster composition isn't completely sealed. Black Jesus runs the Spectral Sword Shade, and then the MCS didn't really run it. He has 3 Solitaires. He does have Super Team Buddy Force Unite, which is a new play here. In the extra deck, he does have Revived King Hades, which is a very good card, actually. I play this card in my Synchro Vampire deck. It's pretty good. I don't know if you can make it, though. You need Plague Spreader Zombie. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can actually cut it, but we'll see. Anyways, a lot of stuff to counter the meta. Again, your 3 Floodgates, 2 Paleozoic, 2 Forbidden Lance. Second place, Francisco, Transcendent Crystal Cristrons. Cristrons are just sneaky good. There's 30 card deck, ton of monsters, and then they just overwhelm you. There are 4 Forbidden cards here, 2 Forbidden Lance, 2 Chalice, 1 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, 2 Treacherous, a lot of things to disrupt your opponent's monster abilities from going off. Third place, K. Contrera, Compensation Dark Lords. Not very remarkable deck here again. 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Galaxy Cyclone, and your regular array of monsters. This one does run Morningstar. This is a card that you probably see the least in Dark Lords. Obviously, it's a toolbox deck. So one of each of those monsters. And then Jason, Compensation, Dark Lords. Same thing, not much to report about this. This is the 2 Desire version. I guess 2 Cosmic Cyclone. Not much else to say. Let's move on to Duel Links Meta Taiwan 85. Bit of a different meta here. Black Wings are still very popular in this scene. First place, Hegelian Boy, Sealed Tombs, Black Wings, and Sorcery Conduit Invoked. So the Blackwing deck is very aggressive here. You've got 2 Cosmic Cyclones and a Hate Truinade. Makes sense, but Blackwings are very OTK friendly, and those cards do help the cause for OTKs. And then the the Element Saber Invoked deck. This one is able to fit Concentrating Current in. There's a 1 Magilonica, 1 Concentrating Current semi-limit split. So that's very good news for the Coxodus that's in the deck. Otherwise, not too much to report. It does run 1 copy of Malo and Nalu to expedite those invocation plays for those 2 attributes. Second place, Bad Kid Chow, Spell Specialist, Grass Shiranui. So this is a new way to play Shiranui here. 30 card deck. They run a lot of monsters. So 2 Spectral Sword Shade, 3 Spectral Sword, 3 Gozuki, 2 Solitaire, 3 Squire, 3 Shiranui Samurai, 3 Spirit Master, 1 Bacon Saver, 1 Kite Roid, Cosmic Cyclone, Galaxy Cyclone, Gold Sarcophagus, Offerings to the Doom, 3 Grass, 2 Floodgate. A 30 card deck here, and it's actually very genius. Gozuki has a lot of synergy with Grass because you mill him from the deck, and then you can banish a zombie from the graveyard. So you banish one of those shades, or the Spectral Sword tuners, and then you could fuse stuff. I mean, you could synchro play while banished, so that's what they do. And then with the 30 card deck, you run a lot of general good cards here. Bacon Saver, Kite Roid, Galaxy, Cosmic, Offerings to the Doomed. So, this deck is really ugly looking, but the Gozuki and the Grass is definitely the play. What makes the deck, I guess. And then he also brought Sealed Tomb's Black Wings. Pretty much the same deck as the one before. They do run Zephyros the Elite instead of Hey Trunade, 2 Cosmic Cyclone to help clear the path for that. And they pretty much just pick their tuners. It doesn't really have to be one specific tuner. This one runs Pinaki the Waxing Moon and 2 Orochi the Squall. Of course, Gale. You always have to have Gale. And third place, Hazuma Act IMT, Sealed Tombs, Shiranui. This is a bit of a conventional deck that you would see in the Duel Links meta community. Kind of a lot of the flipping face down things. 3 Floodgates, 3 Paleozoics, Regulation of Tribe, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, Forbidden Lance, and then Sealed Tombs, Ritual Beast. Ritual Beasts are in a really good spot, I think, in the meta. They do a million things a turn and then they beat you. So this one does run Lava Golem. Some decks run Destiny Hero Plasma. So it's kind of like there's a lot of flexibility in the deck, even though their moves are pretty much the same with their contact fusions. And the third place person, these characters translate to Mista. It's just a pronunciation. Sealed Tombs, Ritual Beast. So I just mentioned Ritual Beasts having flexibility to do things. This one doesn't really have a boss monster. They just rely on their contact fusions. I do like Herald of the Abyss. I feel like I talk about this card every week. And even this deck doesn't have a reason to run it because they don't have to pay $1,500 to use Sealed Tombs. So they're just running Herald of the Abyss for nothing. And I'm not going to say bad things about that because I like Herald of the Abyss. And Sealed Tombs Shiranui, this is a pretty conventional list again. They do run a semi-limit split of Econ and Hey Trunade. Very spell-heavy, a trap-heavy deck, though. They do run Gozuki as well. Yeah. Very trap-heavy deck. So that is it for the tournaments themselves. In terms of the tier list update from Duel Links meta, from their tournament scene, Element Sabers have been joined by Dark Lords. I mentioned how Dark Lords aren't represented the most, but they seem the most efficient in this meta. And with Black Wings going down. Ritual Beast and Shiranui are the new Tier 2 decks. It was always never a doubt that Shiranui would be a tiered deck. They haven't overtaken Element Sabers yet, I think, but right now they're settling into Tier 2. Ritual Beasts they're just good. I mean, there's no way describe it. They do so many contact plays. Once someone tries to counter one of those contact fusions, they would just swap it out with another one. So they kind of just outlast your resources. Like Element Sabers, you can only do that trick with Malehu once a turn. So, I don't know. Tier 3, we have Blackwings and Cristrons. Blackwings have been dumped down here in this meta. Of course, they're probably still fine if you're trying to get a King of Games deck. They're going to get you there pretty quick. And if we've seen in the Taiwan scene, they are still there. They're still top tier in the Taiwan scene. That is it for the Duel Links meta tier list. To the main event of the week that's closing out 2019, Duelist Chronicles 5Ds Fight for the Fortune Cup. This is the first Duelist Chronicles for the 5Ds world. Personally, for me, I don't really know much about 5Ds. I meant to watch the show, but then, it's hard to watch shows nowadays, so I never got to it. So I definitely did pay attention instead of skipping or anything, so I do appreciate learning this first part of the story for this series. I knew some of it already from watching bits and pieces, but it gave me a better sense. And for the event itself, you've got 2 new cards, some old cards. Cards never really saw any play, but Necroid Synchro and Synchro Spirits are 2 interesting cards. Synchro Spirits more so you could recycle your monster, but the 2 new monsters, the 2 new cards, one is Grand Soil, the Elemental Lord, level 8 Beast Warrior, 2800, 2200, cannot be normal summoned, must be special summoned from your hand by having exactly 5 Earth monsters in your graveyard, cannot be special summoned other ways. When this is special summoned, target 1 monster in either player's graveyard, special summon that target to your side of the field. When this card leaves the field, skip the battle phase or your next turn. So, Elemental Lords are pretty much unplayable, generally. It's hard to have exactly 5 things of an attribute in your graveyard, but this one is a little different because Magnet Warriors exist, and they control the graveyard really well. Every monster, the electromagnetic ones at least, they have the ability to dump another monster or swap themselves out for another monster in the deck. And then with their ways of special summoning their big monsters, they remove themselves from the graveyard. So their control, and Delta too, so their control of their graveyard is impeccable. They could just have 5 really easily. So Grand Soil, the Elemental Lord, fits well there. So you can get this guy out for free, 2800. It's not going to be bigger than your Magnet Warrior monster, but it's a free summon, which is always a good idea. It's kind of like Block Dragon. Block Dragon's free. But you could steal your opponent's monsters in the graveyard. So there's some late game appeal here. Of course, when this card leaves the field, skip the battle phase. That's kind of a backbreaker. But Element Sabers skip their battle phase all the time now. So if you could control the board well enough, you could probably do it with your... I don't even know what the guy's called, the guy who machine guns stuff out of the graveyard, but this could fit in Magnet Warriors just because they just control the graveyard so well. Obviously, a grass deck wouldn't work for this because you could just get over 5 and that wouldn't be too cool, but I don't know, maybe you could keep subtracting 3 off the graveyard and get stuff out. I don't know, but this is possibly a fit with Magnet Warriors. The new SR is interesting. Scrap Fist. Quick play spell, target 1 Junk Warrior you control. If it battles an opponent's monster, this turn while you control it, apply these effects. There's 5 effects. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. If it attacks a defense monster, inflict piercing, double any battle damage your opponent takes. It cannot be destroyed by battle, and then destroy the opponent's monster that battled it at the end of the damage step. So, the problem with this card, obviously, is it's a signature move. We've seen a lot of these cards in the game. Signature moves only work when you have 1 monster on the board. A specific monster. So this is Junk Warrior. Junk Warrior is a level 5 synchro summon that has 2100 attack. Junk Warrior never really saw play. except for the beginning when we first got Synchro Monsters, and he was the only guy we had. So, Junk Warrior has not seen play since Armadides came into the game and became an immediate replacement in the level 5 slot, right? So, signature moves are dicey, they break up your hands. You could just have 3 of these in your hand and you're screwed, and you can't even get into the synchro play, right? But this one just has so much going for it. It has 5 abilities in a quick play spell, which is good on its own. Being a quick play spell, my point. The first ability is like anti-magic arrows. So, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end. So, effects also affects hand effects. So, it's even better than anti-magic arrows. It's kind of like the Ritual Beast that hits and then they get disrupted. So, no hand effects either. Then you do Piercing. So, Piercing, a lot of monsters are set in defense mode. I think that kind of came with the invoked plays, but we still see a lot of that face down plays. You see Gravekeepers do it all the time. There's Piercing there. Double battle damage, so those monsters could have weak defense, and you can hit over them. Even a face-up monster, it's still pretty good. They double up the attack on them. Cannot be destroyed by battle, so your Junk Warrior can get over a wall of D or some kind of buff, like an invoked buff. Like they toss Alistair for 1,000, so that's a buff. And then destroy the opponent's monster at battle at the end of the damage step. This kind of goes with the fourth one, because if you don't hit over it, it's going to get destroyed. But if their attack is greater than yours, you lose life points, but then they get destroyed anyways by this effect damage. So, there's a lot going on here. Junk Warrior's still going to hit for 2,100 though, so you have to temper your limitations on... you have to temper your expectations on how much damage you could get with that double. Obviously, if you hit over someone with 0 defense, like a Shiranui, you're going to win the game because you're going to hit them for 4,200, right? But if they have 1,000 defense, you're not going to win the game. So, I think it helps to equip the Junk Warrior with a buff of some sorts, like the names of cards are just not coming to me today. There's a card that buffs it for 1,000. You could put Power of the Guardians. Anything to help that double. Power of the Guardians would help it by 1,000 already, so it's not much. It's not much more you have to do to help the card. Concentrating Current, I don't know. Something to help you do that one-turn kill. If you're going straight for that one-turn kill, definitely have those cards. Of course, they will help break up the hand some more, but oh well. Another card I could think of is that trap card with the battle guards. And card names are not coming to me. It's the one where you could use it for 600 and then in the graveyard it works for 800. Anyways, World Legacy Clash is a counter from this card, so your opponent could use World Legacy Clash on you, and then you can't do anything. They save their monster. Forbidden Lance has a weird interaction with this card. Let's say you play Junk Warrior and then you use Scrap Fist. They use Forbidden Lance. It will allow effects 1, 3, and 5. But then it negates 2 and 4. It's strange, but Forbidden Lance, you could try it out yourself. These are the official rulings. Forbidden Lance negates 2 out of the 5 effects. Finally, to state the obvious, why this card might be good, Akiza has What Grows in the Graveyard, and all you need are Junk Warriors. You could get Dark Verger out, get one play into Junk Warrior. So, Junk Synchron, Dark Verger, Junk Warrior, Scrap Fist, possibly win the game right there. So, she helps a lot in regards to this being a deck. If you see Akiza running Junk Warriors, they probably have a Scrap Fist in hand. Make sure you disrupt them before the battle phase begins, before they could use Scrap Fist. So, it's you see it coming right away. You know this card exists. You know Akiza has her skills, so expect it. And this could be a really cheesy thing that wins a lot of games. Like, this card is pretty good. And it's an easy way to win games. I might be desperate enough to try it, I don't know. So that is it for the Duelist Chronicles 5Ds, 2 new cards. We have another new card this week from the Card Trader update. This is our favorite free-to-play deck from the Card Trader, the Aromas. So this is Aroma Seraphi Angelica. Level 1 Plant Tuner, Light 0/0. During either player's turn, you can discard this card, target one Aroma monster in your graveyard, gain life points equal to that target's attack. While your life points are higher than your opponent's, if you control an Aroma monster, while this is in the graveyard, special summon this, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can use each effect once per turn. This is a fast tuner for the archetype. They have some synergy with monster disposal though, so cards that have a cost to spot summon, like the Tricky, you could toss the Aroma monster and then get this onto the board, gain life points. That's pretty good. Of course, this card can't special summon itself unless you have an Aroma monster, so I guess you could play the Tricky, play another Aroma monster, and then special summon this card. So that's a potential play there. The Tricky is also 5 stars, so it helps you get into a bigger synchro play other than just the level 5 synchro play for Aromas. So that's something to think about. It is a big combo though, so it's not really going to work every turn, but this is the free-to-play archetype, just one synchro monster, so I don't expect anything crazy with this, but this combo I just mentioned with the Tricky lets you get into a bigger synchro play. Obviously, there are easier ways to get a bigger synchro play, Psy Reflector being one example, but this is a free-to-play archetype. Definitely a card you want to get with all the unlimited resources we have. And this is only going to be used for Aroma, so you're going to have Aroma monsters in your deck, but it's whether Aroma monsters can be an engine for some synchro plays. I guess for ones that where you pay life points, maybe like a Psychic deck, because you're going to keep gaining life points, and Psychic decks could just keep spending their life points for powerful effects. Something to think about with this card. There is a new feature called Duel Column. It's basically a little comic strip, and they teach you about the game. So the first one was about deck size, and Tristan and Joey talking about deck size. It's kind of the thing about, it's a nice callback. The first episode, I think Joey put every monster he had into his deck, so then there was like nothing but monster cards, and Yugi said this is not good, you need some balance in your deck. And then he made a new deck, so it's kind of the same thing, Tristan going through that, except Joey didn't know about probability, so that's what this is all about, and it's about having a smaller deck so you increase your odds to draw what you want, and that makes sense. That goes into the theory of deck thinning. Why is Psy Reflector good? Because you thin out your deck like crazy, right? Why is this card good? Because it thins out your deck like crazy. So it increases your odds of drawing the next card the next turn, right? And that's a concept that people don't really get right away, but this is a very easy way to learn it. And of course, they throw in some stats, which is useful. Second Duel Column is about using UI, so using the user interface to search for cards or find related cards. I think this is more about related cards. I'm not sure how useful related cards is, because I'm not sure. It worked for the Ojamas, but I don't know about other ones. So this is a little less useful, but learning to use the UI is never wasted time. There's probably something about looking at the graveyard during your opponent's turn, because that's something they really worked hard to make, or it took them forever to make it, one or the other. But it's probably going to be a future one. And of course, we get rewards. We got a free SR ticket from the Duel Column, so no complaints there. I actually really like the Duel Column. It teaches you card game stuff or game stuff, UI stuff in a fun way, which is always good. You always want education to be fun, so I applaud the Duel Column. Something I didn't expect better than I expected it to be. Alright. Doug Dimmaduel is here. He has a Brainless Mermail deck. There's nothing really special about this deck, but it's brainless. It's to help you play. He talks about eggnog a lot. I'm not a big eggnog person, but if you are and you like playing those water archetypes, this could be the deck for you. Here is Doug Dimmaduel's casual deck of the week, the Brainless Mermail deck.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmaduel with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week, in honor of the holidays and because of potentially all the eggnog you'll be drinking, you may want to have more of a mindless deck for casual and potentially competitive play. So I've taken the liberty of putting together a fairly easy to follow but also kind of expensive casual deck, and this one is just simply mermails. Now, I'm not trying to do anything fancy with anything outside of a mermail monster. This is just strictly a mermail deck. The only two spells that are going to be in this deck are the Abyss Scale of Cetus, and that's just the equip only to a mermail monster equip card. It gains 800 attack. When a trap effect that was activated on your opponent's side of the field resolves, negate the effect, then send this card to the graveyard. Then you also have the Abyss Scale of Mizuchi, which is basically the same thing, gains 800 attack, but if your opponent activates a spell card, you negate that spell card, and then you send this equip card to the graveyard. So those are the only two spells you're going to be running in this deck, because the rest are going to be monsters. You're going to be doing a lot of sending monsters from your hand to the graveyard and sending monsters from the field to the graveyard. So I want to start with Mermail Abysseus. It's a UR level 7. You can discard one other water monster to your graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, and when you do, add one level 4 or lower Mermail monster from your deck to your hand. Now you can only use this effect once per turn. So it's also got 1700 attack. The attack isn't the big thing, but the sending a card to the graveyard is really a big effect. You want to send your Mermail Abyss Hild or your Mermail Abyss Gund. There's a few different options here, so I'll start with Mermail Abyss Hild. It's a level 3 Aqua, 1300 attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Mermail monster from your hand, except Mermail Abyss Hild. You can only use this effect once per turn. So basically you want to have a big beefy Mermail monster in your hand, either your Abyss Megalo or your Mermail Abyss Lead. They're the high attack Mermail monsters, high leveled, usually much higher cost, but you could at least put a high attack body on the field without activating their specific effect. It's pretty good. Then we got Mermail Abyss Gund, level 3 Aqua, 1400 attack, 800 defense. If this card is discarded to the graveyard, you can target one Mermail monster in your graveyard except Mermail Abyss Gund. Special summon that target. You can only use this effect once per turn. So for monsters that cost multiple discards, such as Abyss Megalo, because the cost for that is 2 water monsters, you can send a high-level monster with high attack to the graveyard with your Abyss Gund, and basically then put one of your big monsters back out onto the field. So that's why this is really, really good. I also run 2 copies of Mermail Abyss Spike, and just for reference here, I run 2 copies of Abyss Hild, 2 copies of Abyss Gund, and actually I run 3 copies of Mermail Abyss Spike. That is a level 4 fish, 1600 attack, 800 defense. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can discard one water monster to your graveyard and add one level 3 water monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn as well. So your effects like Abyss Hild and Abyss Gund, they could activate on this Abyss Spike effect. So pretty solid card, but usually what I'll end up is searching out is Mermail Abyss Lind. That's a level 3 Aqua, 1500 attack, 1200 defense. If this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Mermail monster from your deck except Mermail Abyssland. You can only use this effect once per turn. So what I'll do on my first turn is if I have this card in my hand, I'll just set it on the field and call it a turn. Hopefully my opponent will attack into it. And then I'll just send out my Mermail Abyss lead, ideally, because it's got a 2700 attack. Now, this is a Sea Serpent. I believe it is level 7. Yes, it's level 7. You can discard 3 other water monsters to your graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. When you do, you can target one Abyss spell or trap card in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. You contribute one other face-up attack position Mermail monster, and then send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So that secondary effect, you do not need to have it special summoned using its skill or using its effect in order for you to activate that secondary effect, which is why this card is still pretty good, and I'll still run one copy of it, because using Mermail Abyssland, I could search this out of the deck and then just kind of pop one of your weaker level 3 Mermail monsters to have your opponent randomly discard a card. Then finally we got our big boy, Mermail Abyss Megalo, level 7. You know this is the UR from one of the older boxes. You could discard 2 other water monsters to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. When you do, you could add one Abyss spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You contribute one other face-up attack position water monster. This card can make a second attack during the battle phase this turn. So essentially all you want to do is get this guy on the field, pop a weaker monster. Hopefully you'll have at least 1 or 2 equipped spells on it. If you get 2 of those equipped spells, it adds up to a 4,000 attack power monster. So if you could then just kind of knock over one monster and then swing again, you have 4,000 attack to swing for game. So it's pretty OTK driven. But at the end of the day, I mean, this deck is just essentially pretty mindless when you think about it. I mean, the strategy is really just to get some strong monsters on there and attack as quickly as possible, get multiple attacks. But again, if you've had too much eggnog over the holidays, this is something that you don't have to think too hard on to play. So anyway, that's it for my casual deck of the week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug, and you can check him out on this podcast every week with his deck of the week. He has his own his Twitter account, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. Move on to the next section of today's episode. That is the Just Chatting section, where we combine a few segments from Twitter. That starts off with the podcast question of the week. A lot of cards were released in Duel Links in 2019. What was the best card released this year? Conversely, what card was the biggest failure? And I made the note that the interpretation of best card is up to the respondent. So it doesn't have to be the card that won the most games for people, but just, your own evaluation of what best card means. Average Gatsby says, best was probably Neos Fusion as it defined several metas. Honorable mention to Clash and Invocation. Biggest failure was probably Kiteroid as it got limited immediately after release because of how degenerate it was. Notable fails and skills include Kybercorp Bling and Mask Exchange. Notable bests and skills include Light and Dark and Beatdown. Yeah, very, very accurate description of what happened here. I don't remember if Neos Fusion was this year or last year, but if so, it's been a long-ass year. But World Legacy Clash, of course, that was a card that we just kept seeing in decks until it became nerfed. It became obvious it was too good. Invocation for sure. I think Power of the Guardians warrants some consideration in this list. It's just a equip spell that's achieved more than an equip spell should. And that's why it still sees play every so often. I do agree with Kiteroid. It was a mistake. I think Kiteroid should never be in the game. Seeing as how it's not even a TCG card, I think this kind of goes along with how Duel Links is being like a testing ground for the card game itself, but that's another discussion on its own. Yes, biggest fails in skills, Kybercorp Bling, and Mask Exchange, especially Mask Exchange. That was pretty abused for a while. And Light and Dark and Beatdown. Beatdown's been nerfed. Sealed Tomb's probably... It's always been a good skill too, so we don't know where that's going. Gas Station Gyoza says, best card released in 2019 for me is a three-way split of some Synchro monsters here. Vermilion Dragon Mech, Brionic, and Black Rose Dragon are all amazing Synchros that fit in almost every Synchro-based deck. My personal favorite is Vermilion, I guess. Personally, I'm not the biggest on Vermilion Dragon Mech, but for the chances where you get to recycle the tuner, it's really good, like my Psy Reflector play. And it's kind of like what use do you have the monster for? Scrap Dragon kind of does the same thing, so I run both of those. Black Rose Dragon for sure. Black Rose Dragon wins you some games against Subterrors. I know Subterrors, I've seen them a lot on the ladder at this end stage of the year. And they're super annoying to play against, but Black Rose Dragon just blows them up, so that's great. And Brionic, I think. Brionic's probably my favorite of these three. The L Game says, the limit of my Silent Sword Slash was the worst part of my 2019. This is the guy who loves Silent Sword Slash, of course. That's his Raison d'etre. I personally hated Silent Sword Slash because I thought it was degenerate, but everyone has their own opinion of cards, and I need to respect that. Longtime listener, Patreon supporter, Grand Harrier says, best card, Dark Lord Banishment. Single-handedly created one of the most meta-warping decks in the game's history. It just means Dark Lords. Worst card, Cyber Dragon. Wanted since the game launched and it did absolutely nothing. Honorable mentions to Debris Dragon and Alien Ammonite. Total flops. The Cyber Dragon is going to get something with the new box. It's probably not going to work again, but very, very good point. Now Cyber Dragon's just been ramped out to use. I'm just making a pun here since it ramps, but it's been ramped out. There's better, similar cards that do similar things, like the Oracle of the Sun, for example. So, yeah. Honorable mentions to Debris Dragon and the Alien Ammonite. I don't even remember what Debris Dragon is, but I do remember Alien Ammonite. I was trying to make Aliens work. I spent so much money on that box. Now that I'm so broke on gems, I wish I had not. Jake Nady says, I don't know, 2019 was a long year. For me, I got into Vendreads, and now I'm playing Sheer Noise, but as a singular card, I'd go with Kiteroid. Kiteroid is just a card. It's useful, but they shouldn't have given us two, I think. It's gotten to the point where it was nerfed, and, it's probably not going to make it to the TCG either. We don't know. Now I'm going to talk about the Horse of the End mini box, which was not actually a mini box. It was something I literally stole off of Reddit. And what it is a fake mini box. It features the horse that Kaiba gives, the seahorse, Tatsuo Ningo, or whatever his name is. And he's the main cover guy, and then there's some other horse-related cards as the preview cards. Cypher says, wonder how many think this is real. Not many people did. A lot of people retweeted this tweet, even though I stole it off Reddit. And I took credit for it, I guess. The L Game says, the back end of the unicorn. There were many puns about this. This should be called horsing around. Horseplay. I don't know, something of a horse. Femi Bazue says, it ain't real. FKU Konami says, this isn't real. They wouldn't release a mini box if the last release was already a mini box. Giraffe Main says Leem Sigit. Ryo says fake as fuck. So, it just looks good. It looks decently photoshopped, but everyone knows they are not going to release these cards we already have as the cards. I think everyone was excited about Horn of the Unicorn, actually. That was one of the previewed cards that people were talking about. And then another tweet I let out. another hot Duel Links take, Metaphys needs to get banished from the game. Don't got time for 15-minute games. And after I wrote that tweet, I played a 22-minute game against a Metaphys. Pro Benchwarmer says, why play the game when they can play the opponent? Yes, tilting opponents with stall deck. I think that's the main point of stall decks, and there's a lot of decks that go into this category. Sub-Terrors, Ritual Beasts. Ritual Beasts are a little better because they're meta, but they just do so many things a turn. You just don't want to stay there. Metaphys goes into this as well. Brutal Rampage 69, not yet. They're going to be obnoxious eventually, but right now they're kind of a sleeper meta. Sure, I think they've been released not long enough to be banished. I'm just annoyed with them. Doomstrikes13 says, would rather see them than more 6-Sams. As a former 6-Sams player, I disagree. I'd rather lose quickly than stay there forever in the game. So, it's just, I never liked playing control decks, so that's my personal bias, but at the same time, we're playing speed duels, so, and Duel Links is supposed to be played on the phone. I know most of the time I'm playing it on the computer, but it's more about time nowadays. When your time's limited, you don't have time for these games. Go play Hearthstone instead or something. Go play something where longer games are expected, right? That is it for just chatting. It was great talking to everyone. We laughed, we cried, we yelled at each other. That's what the internet's about. Upcoming news. New mini box, Future Horizon. We're going to go over these cards at next week's episode. But this is coming out on New Year's Eve. So everyone's not going to be celebrating New Year's Eve. They're going to be grinding out gems to get Future Horizon. I know that's what we're all going to do. This box is interesting. I'm not going to buy it at all because I have 0 gems. And I'm still trying to get Purgatrio. But it does introduce a new archetype, the Super Hemi Samurais. So we'll see. I'm going to look at those cards then. I haven't really looked at the cards now, so I'll talk about it next week. Early January, Transcend Game Part 2. Get to unlock Sarah again. New rewards and skill. Early January, 3rd anniversary campaign. This game's been going on for about 3 years. Mid-January, appearance of Carly Carmine. This is the normal Carly Carmine, not the Dark Signer. So it's possible she gets to double up as a legendary duelist. We get cards Fortune Fairy Hikari and Miracle Stone, and then a character becomes a fortune teller. Mid-January, Kaelin Kessler, Dark Signer Kaelin Kessler is to the gate. Mid-January, Tag Duel Tournament, new cards The Unchosen One and High and Low. Late January, Duel Quest, and then late January we get to obtain DSOD Joey, so new DSOD character in Joey. Hopefully he has some good stuff with him. So that's it for the podcast. Yeah, it's been a good year. This year, almost all of this year, I've been doing this podcast alone. And the transition has actually gone pretty well, I must say. It hasn't been harder on me. I'm just doing it. And it's more of a convenience thing. I definitely would get a podcast host. But it's more about working on my own time, and that's what I'm into right now. I am open to having some interviews or something, some kind of guest spots now and then, but as far as the podcast goes, it is a solo show for now. Of course, Doug Dimmaduel is part of it with his deck of the week as well. So I'm not really doing it solo, but I am open to talking to people down the line. So this podcast, listen and subscribe anywhere. This podcast is actually on Google now. It's just, you search the Duel Assessment and it'll come up in a podcast tab. So there's like a Google podcast thing now. So this podcast has made it. We're literally everywhere. Dream has been achieved. All these notes are on the duelassessment.wordpress.com. Email the duelassessment@gmail.com or Twitter duel_assessment and my own account at Green Ranger CCG. Alright, so that's a wrap on 2019. I wish everyone a happy and healthy new year as we go into 2020, and of course, happy dueling.